My name is Laurette Cisneros. I work at Perforce Software. And right off the bat, oops, what happened to my thank you slide? Oh, well. I want to say thank you to CloudBees and all of you for coming to the conference and allowing me to share our story. I love going to these conferences. I'm always looking for those little gems that you find in all the sessions. You might sit through an hour of a session, but there's some gems in there. I love those. And I also like to talk, as you'll find out, and share stories. So the first thing that I wanted to start out with was a bit of an introduction. And my introduction is a little different. I have been in the software industry a long time. Sometimes I think I should have been in the movie industry. But when I was a kid, when I start thinking about why do I do what I do, I always think about when I was a kid. And in this case, for doing this talk, something popped in my head and I went, that's interesting, and it was this guy. When I was a kid, I loved Godzilla movies, and the original one was called Godzilla. Okay? And I always loved it when he sprayed his radiation. I don't know why. It must be a kid thing, but I think it's related to why I love doing what I'm doing, and I think I just confessed that I'm an adrenaline junkie. So I'm going to quickly go through some slides that just talk about history, because you got to know where you were to know where you got to. Okay? So a long, long time ago, probably about a little over 5 years, we were doing all manual builds. We'd log into machines. We'd fire off the make tool. In our case, we had PCs that had these sliders, and I actually found a picture on the internet. I was amazed. But I have to explain to you how this build system worked. So you would have these PCs of different architecture. You have these sliders with hard drives that have different OSs loaded on them. You'd slide one in, you'd boot it up, you'd sync down all the source code, you make sure the environment's set up, you fire off all your make, you hope it works. When all of the artifacts are produced, you have to move those off somewhere. You shut down the machine, you pull the slider out, in goes the next slider, and ad infinitum for however many platforms you're building for. This was the manual process. There was a small team. There used to be just one person, because every development team wants to do one thing. They want to develop their product. And so they hire someone and they say, tag, you're it. You get to do the builds. And it started out as one, then it became 3, and then later it became 5 people. And part of their job was producing all the builds. So, of course, they started layering some scripting on, and also tried to put together some nightly build scripts using Perl and Bash, which was only part of the products on part of the platforms that would wake up at midnight and run, and then sometime in the morning, another cron job would wake up, it would go load it into Perforce, and QA would go try to find it. If a build broke, of course, you had like a 24-hour turnaround, and there they are. Okay, where's the build, right? I mean, you all have heard that. This is probably nothing new to a lot of you, but it seems like ancient history, but it is where we came from. So later, this is where I joined the team, and one of the clever, intelligent engineers started to build some scripts on top of all of this to try to make it work better so that the environment would get set up automatically. It would detect what OS it was on. The environment would get upset automatically. It was kind of the beginning of an abstraction layer, but we just felt like we were going like this all the time. Those construction workers started looking at VMs, and I remember when VMs started to come around, there was a lot of resistance. People didn't trust them. They're not stable. I remember hearing that, right? And again, the clever, intelligent engineer that you hired is like, no, they're great, they're wonderful, look what you can do. Very forward thinking, and everyone else is like, no, I don't trust them. So we were trying to get those implemented as well. And then later we did go out and we said, look, something's got to change. There's a lot going on. You guys need builds firing off more consistently. You need better turnaround. And we started doing research, and we looked at a bunch of different frameworks that were out there. And they let us buy one. That was probably the happiest day of my life as the at the time, build and release manager. And lo and behold, we get lots of faster turnaround. But this is what the setup looked like. Okay? So all along the process, during development, during testing, at feature freeze time, at stabilization time, at release time, it was the build and release team that had all the work. So the coders were coding the product, and QA was testing as fast as they could, and now we've got a framework cranking out CI builds, but we are still doing all the porting, we are still doing all the building, for the releases, we are still doing all the pushing out to the FTP site and other places. We still had this big pile of work coming at us from all different directions, and we finally just went, whoa, this is a lot of work for one team. So then, about that time, when we were getting ready to wave that white flag, more products. How many of you have been through this? That's not enough products. Let's add some more because we need more, right? More clients, more fun things like Get Fusion hooks Git to Perforce. I mean, let's just keep adding them. And by the way, different languages, Java, right? I remember when Java came into the mix, we had to figure out how to crank out all our CI builds using Maven. And I was like, Maven what? And Nexus, what? Got to learn all that. It's great. Artifactory, we love it, right? But all of this has to go into the pipeline somehow, and all of this is going through the team. Fighting priorities. When I wrote that, I immediately, the Godzilla fighting a cat, and believe it or not, I found one on the internet. You know, you're trying to herd cats while Godzilla's out there trying to crash everything. You need faster feedback on those product changes, not just internally, but also your customers. I mean, product management is very important. We introduced product management, I think, a few years ago, several years ago, and they need that quick feedback. And then, of course, the manual hands-offs, as you know, we're in every step of the way of that whole pipeline. Everything was coming through us. But QA as well. There were hands-offs to QA. We hired an entire team of technical product managers to do nothing but nag. I called them technical product naggers, and they hate, yeah. I was not popular. I admit it. I have a lot to work on. I am a work in progress. So some wonderful executive said, continuous delivery. And we started looking at it, and everyone on my team went, yes, that's exactly what we've been preaching. Versioning everything, automating as much as you can of that pipeline, moving the ownership out to the product teams of their builds and pushes, and in fact, moving the ownership of the porting and the configuration to them and letting us help them. What a great idea. It was a fantastic idea. Put automated gated releases, and the reason that they have to be gated is, you know, you still have to do that final check. You don't want, you know, something ending up on the FTP site like your source code, so you definitely want to still gate them. And then the B&R team, the build and release engineering team, became engineering tools. And that was the second happiest day of my life at Perforce. And you can see the picture. Unfortunately, they're a little dark, but the caption to the picture is, approach is everything. I felt like we were trying to land a 747 on an aircraft carrier. A little tricky, can be done. So this is what it looks like now. This is continuous delivery at Perforce. Each of those product teams now owns their pipeline. So as the pipelines flow, they get to automate, they get to make use of the framework and tools that the engineering tools team is putting in place. So we already had that framework in place that's cranking out all our CI builds. We're building tools. Remember those build scripts I talked about? That turned into something called a build library, where there's some scripts and programs that are layered on top of some complex things like setting up the environment for the builds, or even as simple as integrating a change from one place in our depot to another, which, you know, merging changes in that they need. So there's this tool stack they can use, there's this framework they can make use of, and the best part is they don't have to use it. They can decide to do something else. And we sometimes have to learn it and sometimes don't, but the idea here is that they get to own their pipeline. And that was a huge change. And just to give you an idea of some of the tools that we made use of, so the framework that we originally used for all our CI builds is Electric Cloud. And some of the teams do make use of Jenkins as well. Again, remember, they get to choose what they use. We create this framework, they get to decide. And of course, one of the edicts of continuous delivery is version everything. Well, we got that one down pat. I mean, that's what Perforce does. So we are versioning everything, almost. Because remember, infrastructure is code. That's the piece we're working on. How do we get even all of our infrastructure, all of our framework stuff into Perforce? And that's the piece that we're working on right now. We have Puppet. Docker's becoming really big now, and a lot of the build processes that some of the product teams are doing, and QA, when they're testing, they're making use of Docker and firing those off to test and then breaking it down really quick. Huge VM farm. Oh, VMs are the greatest thing since sliced pie. We do not build on a single bare metal machine. We either build on Linux and cross-compile, like example for AIX, or we used to build for Solaris. And I believe that there's only one bare metal machine that QA actually does testing on, and they have a huge VM farm as well. And Vangrid's in there, Cucumber, Perl, Ruby, Python, it's all in there. I mean, there's many, many more than this. There's even a tool that the QA team wrote where at the end of every test run, all the stats are loaded in a database so they can keep track. Okay. And we, like I said, we do make use of Jenkins. There are product teams that use Jenkins for their test builds, and it's really easy for them to set up their CI builds and fire off tests. And then when those pass, we hand it off to the other framework. I mean, there's definitely a lot of tools talking to each other. Engineering tools will maintain the production one. One of the things that we try to encourage is that they set up their own Jenkins, but they keep wanting to use ours, and we're like, okay, fine, you can use it. And we went back, and there was a great Jenkins Perforce plugin out there, but we actually, I think it was last year, we wrote our own P4 Jenkins plugin, excuse me, so you could access Perforce straight from Jenkins. And it was done in Java this time. I don't believe the last one was. And one of the clever, intelligent engineers figured out a way to dump out the Jenkins configuration into the file system, and then use Git in our Git Fusion client program to hook it up to Perforce. And now we are versioning our Jenkins configuration. So if one of those development teams that decided they wanted to use our Jenkins instance loads a plugin or they screw something up, we can easily go back and restore it to what it was. And we call that drinking our own champagne. I like that better than dog food. In fact, my dogs don't even eat dog food, so there you go. So here's an example from submit to the packages being created for our Git Fusion tool. Might as well use it since I just talked about it. But you can see the different colors or the different pieces that are getting made in parallel. So this is the best part, is they're all made in parallel. It all happens all at once. And then the final thing that's not on this slide is the builds that happen in main, because we do trunk-based development, get pushed out immediately to our FTP site. So anyone can grab it and start testing it for us. Because who's better at testing it than customers? Oh, trust me, they are better at testing it than us. And one of the great things about having any kind of framework are the data-driven improvements. So you can gather metrics from your framework, whether you set it up yourself or use somebody else's. There's a lot of great metrics to be gathered. So, for example, we can look at wait time for resources. I love the resource management part of any kind of framework, because I sure wouldn't want to, when you have this vast VM farm and you want to make sure that you're keeping track of all the builds that are running on all those different resources. So you gather, for example, we gather wait time for the resource, elapsed time on the resource, and we look for the bottlenecks, or we look for where we can improve it, adjust, see the effects, start over again. So it's this cycle. Again, another edict of continuous delivery, continuous improvements. So here's an example. There's when we implemented the CI builds in the new framework. And before, it was an 18 to 24-hour turnaround, only some products on some platforms. That's how far we got with our nightly build script. Now we have the framework, we implement it, and you can see an immediate drop to about 3 hours. So what do you think was the first thing someone said to us after we did this? Thank you. Why so slow? And we said, okay. And we took a look, and you can see we actually got it to drop further. And what we did is we split some builds. So some platforms we were still on bare metal for Solaris, and those took a little bit longer than, say, the ones that we were running on Linux. So we split builds off, and we started to improve the speeds of the builds. We took a look at a few other things, and we dropped it to down below 1 hour. No, they did not come back and say still slow. So I just wanted to say that was a 90% improvement, and that is the benefit of frameworks and using them and gathering metrics, is that you can do this improvement. And I'm going to tell you the second benefit of doing that. One sec, I'll come right back. The second benefit is I got to put this slide up at a quarterly meeting in front of the whole company, and that felt good. I call that job, protecting my job. Quick question. It was in terms of the turnaround improvement for that team, yes. That's our P4V GUI team, and they needed, the QA folks needed that quicker turnaround because they were actually in a crunch trying to get bug fixes going and making sure they were fixed quick enough so they could get it out the door. So the answer to that is yes. And the second answer to that question is, what makes it beneficial is when the product team says it's beneficial. And that has been the hardest thing for me, because I have a hard time of trying to explain to them how great all this is when they don't want to use it. And they look at me like, why are you trying to force us to use this? So what I have to do is I have to keep telling myself, they're the customer. They're the customer. Repeat after me. Here's one more. So, and just wanted to go through these really quick because I love these metric slides. Can't help it. They look good, right? So this is build counts. So you can see that we had relatively stable build counts, and then it kind of went up. And then the IT infrastructure was when IT put in a new storage system for us. Oh, that was nice. We kind of were trying to find space where we could find it. Brand new storage system. It's kind of like the computer, you know, in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or actually it was the third book, wasn't it? Was it Hitchhiker's? Uh-oh. That's so long ago. Rusty brain cells. Anyway, it takes over the whole hardware. And IT said, what are you doing? We're like, I don't know. So you can see where the build counts started going up, and IT came to us and said, okay, you're saturating. You got to take a look. So we did take a look, and we did some throttling, and down they came again. So that throttling was two things. It was taking a look at doing, we were doing parallel syncs, which was just saturating the IOPS on the storage. And the second thing was making sure we were doing some smart triggering on these builds. So you might have like installers that consume other builds. And what was happening is a change would be checked in, and it would fire off everything. It would fire off all of the builds that depended on that change, including the installers. And we were like, the installers should actually run after the other pieces get built that go in the installer. So we started to make improvements like that. We did that kind of throttling, and you can see that the build counts came down. This is also my come work for Perforce slide, because you see where it says holidays. The reason those build counts go down is because we all get the week between Thanksgiving and Christmas off. Oh, maybe I shouldn't tell you that if you're a Perforce customer. Okay, tech support has to work, but I'm just saying, think about it. Okay, so how have we been doing? Results so far. So the release process lead time is from 7 days to 2. And that was an interesting one, because this was another place where the product team would say, okay, we're ready, and a week later, we're getting the notice to the build and release team, it's time to do the release build and get it out the door, and the product team's like, what's taking so long? And that's because there was this handoff piece that was happening and talking and making sure the resources were lined up. But now that it's automated, part of the pipeline is down to 2 hours. So someone punches a button and it fires off a build. The other thing is we are now up to 77% automated test coverage. Another edict of continuous delivery, right? Test everything. And that test coverage is regression testing. And it's starting to free QA up to do the exploratory testing. That number is going to continue to climb as they keep automating their tests. This has been going on for a couple years for us, so they're still playing catch up. Big increase in releases. So you can see in 2012 we have 47, in 2013 we have 55, 14 it went up to 162. 14 I believe is when we started really focusing on automating everything, automating the pipeline, handing things off to the product teams, reducing that time that it takes to get from one step to another. And then so far this year we have about 81 releases, but there's thousands. And when I went to read these metrics, I was like, really? There's thousands of snapshot builds now for 3 of our products, Get Fusion, P4V, and Insights. And what that means is those snapshot builds, as soon as they are built and tested and they pass, they get pushed out to the FTP site, again, so that our customers can test for us. Wait, did I get everything? Sorry. 500 builds a day on average. And then Engineering Tools Inc. And so one of the things that we looked at when we became Engineering Tools and we're working on the framework and the tools that help everyone do their build and release pipeline is we kind of think of ourselves as a company. And I like to go around saying I'm the CEO and my tech lead's the CTO, and we have to go and we have to figure out what our customers need and satisfy that. And that's the part that I said that, I'm still learning how to not try to, I try to sell them, but I try not to push them into too much, and I try to listen to them. I wish I had my own product manager who could listen to the customers and come to me and say, we need these features in our software, but we're working on it. So where are the lessons learned? Well, in terms of continuous delivery, everything that the book says, I hope you all have read the red book, at least the first chapter. It gets a little harder to read as you go deeper into the chapters, but we do trunk-based development. We've always done mainline development. In fact, there's always been a white paper out on our web page about mainline development, and I like to tell people that Christopher Seiwald, who founded the company, invented mainline development, and the CD guys ripped it off, but they call it trunk-based development, so I guess I can't say that. But he truly believes in mainline development and always has, and it's a great way to go. Using feature toggles so that you can stage your changes into your code, and you can turn them off if they're not ready. And you can do that with your tests as well, and that allows you to keep the mainline development going and keep your features moving forward, and then you can release the smaller set, and it's a great way to get your software out the door and stable and still be able to do your feature development. And of course, version everything, that used to be our byline of our company. It still is, I think. And just in terms of technology side, DevOps. So I love to have the argument about DevOps because I'm on the side of DevOps as an idea, not a person. And then I was at the booth today, and someone walked up and started talking about DevOps, and they were on the side of DevOps is people. And so, of course, now I had to think about it, and I went, oh my God, I just had a revelation. I'm a DevOps person. Just ruined my day, no. But DevOps is people, but it is an idea and it is people. It's both. It's about getting the development people, I like to call them the product team, you know, we called them embedded teams at one time, where you have QA and dev, and you have the build person, and you have, you know, a set of other people, the product manager, you might have a project manager, all part of that team. And you get them to work together and you collaborate, and they collaborate with the ops person, they collaborate with engineering tools, and the idea is to get that collaboration going. I love going to these shows and sitting in our booth and talking to people. A guy from Netflix walked up to me and I was asking him, you know, how do you do it at Netflix culture? How do you get these people to just talk to each other and figure things out and, you know, decide? And he goes, I think it's because there is no management. Well, there is management. Management doesn't get involved, and there's, you know, they don't call meetings, which would be great. So I'm going to try and go back to Perforce and see if I can inject some of this Netflix culture there. But it is about, you know, development and ops working together. And I think that was my favorite thing about continuous delivery and getting it working at Perforce. So the lessons learned, and I like to be honest. So I'm going to be really honest. It was not easy. It was hard. It was a switch in thinking and culture. We were so focused on our team owning everything, the framework, the tools. I mean, just getting the builds done, the security. It's amazing how ingrained that becomes. And then dev really just wants to focus on creating that product because that's what they're good at, and I don't blame them. That's the place to be. That's fun. So making that switch was hard. And so at first, you know, the system was designed for us to manage it. And then we had to start doing this knowledge transfer. And that happened a little too quickly. We needed a little bit more time to do the changeover. And the best thing that happened was when we just finally, when they moved the porting stuff over and they moved, you know, a lot of those builds and pushes over to the product teams, freed us up to actually now write documentation so that now that we moved it over to them, they knew how to do it. So writing the documentation was great. Getting that knowledge transfer took a little bit of time. So there was that skills gap. So it was that catch-22 of move it first and then give them all the information they need, or try to find time to do all the information they need while you're doing all the work and then move it over. So the decision was just move it. And now you have time, go write all that documentation. Teams understanding why the shared infrastructure was necessary. You know, just even them understanding the framework and tools was enough, but why? That's the big question, why? And making sure you drive home the why. And instead of being, sometimes instead, you know, you say, okay, product team, you own this, and they go, tag your it to one of their team members who goes, what? And that wasn't really part of the solution. The solution was the team owned it, right? And so you need to train up more than just one person. And that took time for them to work on. And then, of course, the ad hoc requests. Nobody liked everything. We need all these changes and trying to manage those to make sure that it goes smoothly. So just some more lessons learned on, you know, the continuous improvements. You're going to hit bumps. Stay on course, right? It is, I mean, another edict of continuous delivery is continuous improvements. Keep evaluating. That's what frameworks are great for, right? They can help you gather metrics, help you figure out how you can improve things. We had to continue tackling that technical debt. We still have some. We still have some documentation to write, but we're getting there. We are finally able to move the build libraries forward and the tools forward that will help the teams be able to do these more efficiently. Setting up automated infrastructure testing finally. Remember, the infrastructure as code, that was one. The infrastructure testing. You know, you put things in place, it'd be nice if you tested them before other people had to use them and they broke. And then, of course, the communication and collaboration, the DevOps part, the idea of DevOps, and the people of DevOps is important. So the vision of the engineering tools team, and I think all of Perforce, is that the entire development and release process is managed continuously, and we're getting there. We still have work to do. I won't lie to you. I mean, you can see the list here of things that we want to get done. And we just want to make sure that we have the robust and fast infrastructure that scales to meet that need and increases. I like that word agility. I love agile. You know, we use a Kanban board, but it's kind of agile. I mean, it's a mix, but some of the development teams do agile. I love the word agile, and it is all about agility. It's all about making this as simple as you can without being too simple. So just for those who don't like all those words, you come to a talk and you're like, I ate lunch, and they just put all these words up there, and they're blurred. So here's the picture part of that. So the picture part, I call it my Bay Bridge analogy. So when they went to replace the Bay Bridge, they did not tear down the old one and build a new one. Can you imagine? Although maybe they should have with all the problems they had. But instead, they left the old one in place while they built the new one. And that's what we tried to do when we implemented CD. And that's what the engineering tools team tries to do, is we build new pieces. You leave the old bridge in place while you build the new one, and then you dismantle the old one after you've proven the new one works. After you fix all those bolt problems and leak problems, right? Then you start to take the old one apart. And then the end result is beautiful. Does anybody notice something about this picture? Somebody took the time to Photoshop out the old bridge. It's still there. Nobody ever notices that. So I love this quote. In anything at all, perfection is finally attained not when there is no longer anything to add, but when there is no longer anything to take away. And Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, which I believe there's a winery named after him, he was looking at the tall ships in the harbor. And, you know, the bridge, the new Bay Bridge, I love it. It's beautiful. It looks like a ship. And I was starting to think, I was like, it's about taking things away. It's not about adding things. It's about taking things away, knowing how to scale it down till it's efficient. That's what continuous delivery is to me. And that's what we've tried to do at Perforce. And you remember this guy, right? At least I hope you do. I'll never forget him. I used to dream about him as a kid. I mean, vivid dreams of him. Believe it or not, I'd be running along, and there'd be a bridge in my dream. So maybe that's why I like bridge analogies. I don't know. And here's Godzilla, and I'm like exhilarated. Here's Godzilla in my dream. I love it. Later, as an adult, this is who Godzilla is. Come on. It's a man in a suit. And the person behind Godzilla is just a really clever engineer, right? The director of the movie. So the man in the suit's name is Hirao Nakajima, and the director's name is Yoshiro Honda. And I will forever be grateful to them, because I think it's a great analogy. Godzilla, your monster, is really just a man in a suit. And you just got to learn how to talk to the man like the director is. And trust me, I can be a monster. I admit it. Everyone's a monster, but it's fun. Remember that, it's fun. And when you go back to work, you say, Laurette said it's fun, and they'll look at you like, who's Laurette? Okay? So it's not the brains that matter the most, but that which guides them, the character, the heart, the generous qualities, and progressive ideas. And that's why I love continuous delivery. I love continuous delivery. I think it's a great idea. And I was just so happy when Perforce decided they wanted to implement it. So, any questions? Anyone? Yes?
You mentioned it a few times, what was changed so that the curve just really
Which slide was that?
that was
The one with the 90%? So we went from the nightly build scripts to the continuous integration framework, which at that time was Electric Cloud. We implemented all our builds in Electric Cloud. So before we had the nightly scripts, so it had a 24-hour, 18 to 24-hour turnaround. It was only some of the products on some of the platforms, and then we got everything into the framework and dropped those times, because now we're cranking them out. As a change is checked in, every couple minutes, a routine will wake up, look to see if there's changes, and fire off builds for us. And it dropped all the way down to 3 hours, and then we got it down to 1 hour. Yes?
I'm going to stack two questions. One off of there. So your CI build, so you're building per commit?
Almost. Every couple of minutes, the routine wakes up and looks for changes, so it could be more than one change.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's scheduled builds, but it's continually building. You're not waiting for an hour to
No, we're waiting 2 minutes. And then every 2 minutes it'll say, are there changes in this area, the source code that belong to this product? Yes, fire off a build. Actually, for the P4V product, it's even less now. I think we got it down to 30 minutes. For other products, it's fast or slow depending on the product, depending on what's being built.
We're tracking things. You talked about increased releases without regression. Did you measure what the resulting defect rate was?
I have a slide somewhere for that, actually. I didn't bring it, but yes, we do look at that too. QA looks at that. Yeah. We did. We initially saw, like for the P4V product, we actually initially saw it go up, and then it dropped. And the reason it went up was because now we got better at finding bugs because we have continuous integration builds, and then we caught up, and then it went down. I should have brought, I usually stick a bunch of slides at the end I can show. I'm sorry I didn't bring that one. But that's a great question. They're all great questions. I'm sorry, they're all great questions. Yes, in the back.
I was wondering, when you move the responsibility of your system flow from one team to a separate product team, do you find that your team would still spend a lot of time trying to support these individual products?
Oh, we still are. That's our number one edict, proactive consulting with those teams, yes. And as the ownership went over to them, and as they get better, that slows down. But at first, for example, our server product team, when we moved the release stuff over to their project manager, we sat with her for the first 3 or 4 releases, then we sat with her for 10 minutes, then now we just get some emails, okay, I ran into this. So it does get better, but I mean, proactive consulting was our number one edict for Engineering Tools, Inc. Any other questions? I love them, please, come on. Come on, try me, yes.
This is about the, when you have continuous integration, you've got a lot of people checking code.
Yes.
Is it just, you just go after the last person who checked it in?
No, so again, the routine wakes up every like 2 minutes and checks, and there's a set of changes. And one of the great things is those changes are in Perforce, and Perforce keeps track of who did this change, what date and time. And if the build fails, we say what changes went into that build, and we have emails that go out to everybody. Somebody broke the build, fix it.
Oh, so you don't just, it's not the last, you did this build.
No. It's the set of changes that went into that build, and those people will get notified, as well as a build failures list that we monitor. No, we don't have a shame toy.
So you'll throw away somebody's good change, not your one. I'm saying if you.
I didn't throw it away.
If it broke because somebody else's check-in was bad, their check-in was good.
That's right.
But they get the mail.
They get the mail, and we have this nice little link that says "not me." So they go check. They say, "Oh, it's not me." They click the "not me." They no longer get the failure mail, and eventually the one who broke it is the only one getting the failure mail, right? But it also goes to build failure lists we monitor, and then we tap them on the shoulder and we say hello. We say it nicely sometimes. Did you have a question back there? Okay. Yes.
Do you have a problem with too many emails and people just ignoring Jenkins?
Yes. That's where the "not me" link came from. And that took us, believe it or not, it took us a year to get in there. I wish we'd done it sooner, because now everybody's happier because they can just say "not me." And they don't complain about too many emails anymore. You also have to tighten up the source areas that you're looking at for the builds, and make sure, because some of our products share code areas. We're working on that. We're trying to get them to move into their own depot areas. But right now, some of them share, and they both get the mails. Yes?
So have you looked at gating one at a time, so only one person, the person who broke it got it? Or is it always going
We don't know who broke it at that point, yeah.
Right now, the way you have it is that you say every X, 2 minutes is what you say. I'm going to see if there's any change. If there is, I'm going to start the build process. Could you do this from a trigger from a commit?
We could, and then our build counts would go way up.
So it's a function of coalescing builds to get less builds.
Yeah, there's a balance. And so that triggering on every change can work. but there's a balance. But it would reduce the who's getting these failure mails who didn't do it. Correct. So there's a balance there, and we went with the every 2 minutes as opposed to that. And again, you know, that is a good thing to point out, because that might be something I need to ask my product teams now. Should we change that? Because it was something we decided need to have. Maybe I need to go ask them. So thank you for asking that. Again, everybody's question is great. Okay, I just. I'm sorry, what was it? Not me? The framework has these things called properties where we can hang values. Those properties are the best thing that ever happened in that framework. And we hang values in there all the time, and we track who made a change. And when they say not me, we go, okay, don't send them a mail. Because we know in there. Yes. So it's actually the link in the bottom of the mail takes them to this web page, and they just say, it ain't me. Yep. Yeah. The failure mail is out. Right, but let's say the build keeps failing. So as more changes are checked in, a build might fire off. Previous one was broken. Next one's broken. The mail goes out again. If they say not me for this one, they will not get any more emails until that build is fixed. That's right, and then it's reset. Correct. Yes.
Or say that person makes another commit who had already said not me, will it reset for them? Just out of curiosity, is it possible?
Yes, they will get added to the mail list. But I think if they already said not me and the build keeps failing, that's I'm going to go to my tech lead and say, how did you implement this? What about this little edge case here? I have a feeling they still won't get a notification until the build's fixed.
Of course, they probably don't want to pile on, as it were.
Yeah, I'm going to say they probably do not. I will. See, this is why I love doing this. You guys come up with these great things, and I'm going to go back and ask my tech lead now. It's like, make sure I'm pretty sure they don't. Once you say not me, until it's fixed, and then it breaks again, they're not going to get an email.
So you do it on Jenkins?
Some is on Jenkins. Majority is on Electric Cloud. Yeah, depends on the product team. Some product teams are using Jenkins. Yes. Yes.
Do you ever get any false negatives, like they say not me, but it was
Never. In fact, my team never breaks the build, ever. Does that answer your question? Yes.
So how large is your team and how many product teams do you support?
We are 5 people, including this manager that sometimes they want to get rid of. And we support, oh goodness, how many developers are there? We're a small company. I think we have, maybe you can help me, Tony. I think it's more than that, isn't it? 200 something worldwide. We have dev teams in Alameda, Victoria, UK. I'm going to say 100 developers. That's a guess. I should know that answer. Wow, this is great. Keep testing me. I love this. I'm sorry, I don't have. It's probably about 100 developers. Yeah. Any yes.
You mentioned about 500 builds a day.
Yes.
It's not for one product, right? There are multiple products.
No, that's for all the products. That's total that are being built every day. Yeah. Oh goodness, depends on the product. Depends on the product and how many changes have gone in for that day. So that's, next time I'll throw a bunch of slides in here for all these things you guys are asking. I promise. Any other questions? Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.